The planet is heating up.
The oceans are becoming filled with plastic.
Change starts now.
Change starts now.
We're on a countdown
To zero waste. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is the Zero Waste Countdown Podcast. Here's your host, Laura Nash.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Zero Waste Countdown podcast and radio show. Today, we're speaking with Leonardo Alvarez. He is actually the CEO of Protera. Now, this is a really cool company that involves tech and some biology, so we're going to find out all about that. So welcome to the show, Leonardo. It's so cool to have you.
Thanks, Laura. I'm really excited to be here and happy to discuss with you some of our challenges, especially around sustainability.
So Protera is mainly combating food waste. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, exactly. So actually at Protera, we have developed a core technology that is based on artificial intelligence that allows us to design and create new proteins for specific challenges. And we do have many internal products. One of our products, it's around food protection. We want to decrease food waste. That's a key issue in the food industry. So one of the products, it's actually to avoid contamination, fungal growth in different food products, which is one of the main issues around food waste.
So this is where we get the two products. So if you go to Protera website, we have Protera Guard and Protera Sense. So can you tell us what those two products do?
Exactly. So the first product, Protera Guard, it's actually a protein that allows food companies to extend shelf life of their products by inhibiting the growth of certain fungal strains that usually contaminate bakery products. We are at the beginning focusing on bakery shelf life extension. There is a big issue around bread being contaminated with different fungal strains, and there's a big waste on those products even before they reach the consumer. So that's where we want to really approach the industry, and we are working with multiple food companies testing this product already in industrial setups. So for us, the challenge is now how to produce it and scale it. On the other side, Protera Sense, it's actually a protein that allows us to transform vegetable oils and can optimize texture. And the idea and the vision for that specific product is to replace and reduce palm oil consumption.
So with the fungus that's growing on the bread, is that like mold that we would see?
Exactly. It's the classic mold that you see when you open a white bread in your house, and then after 1 week you probably see that mold growing.
Yeah. Okay. So if we use Protera Guard on the bread, would that mean we wouldn't have to put so many preservatives into the bread?
Exactly. And that's one of the key values that we bring on the table. It's, we know that consumers and ourselves, we don't want to be using all those preservatives that are, chemical compounds that have a lot of environmental impact, but also there is mounting evidence around the impact on human health too. So we are developing a product that is based on a protein, so it can be easily digested once you eat it. So there is no, toxic issues or allergenicity issues. And then it actually outperforms the current additives that are being used in the food industry.
Well, that sounds really great, because when I look at bread in the grocery store or tortillas or something in Canada, there's like 10 ingredients on the ingredient list, and I don't know what a lot of that stuff is, and so I'm not too keen on feeding it to my child or eating it myself. So I make bread at home now. It took me a long time to learn, and it's just flour, water, and salt. So I feel like if we had, this Protera Guard, that we could eliminate a lot of those ingredients that I can barely pronounce. Do you happen to know like any of those ingredients that go into bread as a preservative that may be harmful?
Sure, definitely. And the main additives that companies are using right now in the bakery industries includes calcium propionate, for example, or other sorbates that they have many issues, right? For in one side, you need to add a lot to have the required effect, but also it will impact the flavor of the product because these ingredients works mostly on acidic conditions, right? So that end up impacting the flavor of the product too.
Okay. And so do we know of anything that's bad for human health or for the environment? So are there any ingredients that Proterra Guard could replace that are harmful for the environment or for our health?
Yes, definitely. And there is, as I mentioned, mounting evidence on the impact of high concentrations of propionates, for example. A lot of recent research being conducted on animal experiments and seeing the impact on increasing levels of insulin, for example. So there is mounting evidence on the impact on potential impact on human health, and so that's one side of the equation. And then on the other hand, for food companies, they know that the new consumer is looking for clean labels, right? And that means reducing the number of additives that they put on their products. And that's where our ingredient also comes in, right? We can replace 2 or 3 additives with one protein, which is a natural protein being produced through fermentation, which is also a natural process that then will go into the food product.
Oh, you're producing it through fermentation. So we talked about this a long time ago with a company that was fermenting with sugars to make, I think, like replacements for petroleum in makeup and cosmetics, like hand cream and stuff like that. So how are you using the fermentation process?
So there is, a growing number of companies using precision fermentation. That's how it's called today to produce different type of products. And the way we use the fermentation is that we put our protein into a yeast, basically, and then the yeast consumes sugars to produce the protein, and then we recover that protein as a yeast extract, and that's how we end up with the final product.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And then you said that you used AI as well. So how does the AI come in to Proterra?
That's a very good question, and actually it's the core technology that we have at the company, and we designed this artificial intelligence platform that it's called MADI to understand how nature have developed all the proteins that we see around, right? From proteins in our skin, proteins that allows us to breathe, etc. So we wanted to really uncover those patterns, how those proteins works. And then we use all those learnings that were captured by our AI to then identify and design new products that are based on that knowledge, right? So then we can use this platform to find proteins that will have certain properties. Like, for example, if it's a protein that will go into bread, it needs to resist high temperatures, right? Besides the key function, which is inhibiting the growth of this mold, then it needs to resist high temperature. It needs to be soluble at some point to allow proper manufacturing. So we can find all those properties in natural proteins and then say, okay, this is the right protein for this application. And then we take that protein and produce it through fermentation. So it's really the core technology.
So does it act a little bit like a catalog? Like, is the AI going through a long, almost list, if you will, of all the different proteins?
Exactly. So we have shown to the AI first all the proteins we know from nature, all the proteins that exist, because scientists in the past 70 years have been studying proteins, and we have a lot of data around that. So our AI engineers have developed a proprietary database that then we can show to the platform to learn those patterns. And then indeed we do have kind of a catalog of edible proteins. And then we search through that catalog with the AI to select the one that will have the properties we're looking for.
Wow, that's amazing. So it's like a giant encyclopedia almost of different
Exactly.
things.
what it's interesting is that, sometimes we have in this internal catalog some proteins that are annotated to have certain function, but then we realize they are really good at, providing emulsification properties or texturizing properties or foaming properties. So then you can discover new functions for proteins that were already known.
Oh, this is so cool. So I do want to get into palm oil. So if you're listening, stay tuned. We're going to get into palm oil because that's a big thing in the environment. But I just have another question about the AI. So MADI, MADI, what does that stand for?
Exactly.
I was reading about that. MADI?
Yes, that's correct. So it actually, it had a meaning at the beginning, but not anymore, because it has evolved a lot over the course of the development of the company. So, but we stayed with the name. I think it's a cool name, and yeah, that's all.
What is up with MADI? Because I remember reading on your website that it was developed over the last 70 years. So is MADI like part of the AI?
No, so MADI, it's actually the AI platform, right? It's a set of different deep learning algorithms that allows us to learn from proteins, and proteins are very complex molecules. So you need to learn from the molecular structure and other physical and chemical properties. So we have developed this set of different AI modules that allows us to extract those patterns from proteins.
Okay, so when the website says it was developed over the last 70 years, that would probably just be the work that scientists have been doing for so long, identifying
exactly
proteins,
right.
I guess? Okay, cool.
That's right.
Thank you for clearing that up, because I was like, oh, there must be some history behind here. But isn't it fascinating how science works and we keep building on it? And this is what I try to keep saying on the show, is that I think tech and development is going to, we're just going to keep getting more advanced and cleaner, which is very cool. And this is just a great example of it. So palm oil. I don't know if you're listening, if you remember this commercial from a couple Christmases ago. They had this orangutan commercial where the forest was being destroyed for palm oil, and then it said, please don't use palm oil if you can, and it was really sad. And then there's a YouTube video with an orangutan trying to beat up a piece of construction equipment, and it's absolutely heartbreaking. I'm going to tear up just thinking about it. I really don't like that video. So I think you probably know, if you're listening to the show, that palm oil is a big problem, and Proterra is working on replacing palm oil. So I have a couple questions for you around that. So first of all, why is it so environmentally harmful for us to use palm oil?
Yeah, that's a very interesting topic, and the main issue with palm oil is that it only grows on certain regions of the planet, right? So that's why you see a lot of deforestation to occupy that space to grow palm oil, and so that's one of the main environmental concerns. And the reason why we are using more and more palm oil is because it provides a texture that is highly desirable by consumers in the food industry. And I'm talking about this kind of spreadable texture, and it's a high melting point vegetable oil. So it spreads at room temperature, and you can obtain some solid fractions that then can be used in some confectionery applications, or to make cookies and a lot of bakery applications. So that's the main reason. And the palm oil consumption actually started to grow a lot, because before using palm oil, food companies were using other ingredient that was actually worse for human health. And that ingredient is the partially hydrogenated oils. So that's basically any kind of liquid vegetable oil that is processed through a chemical process that transform unsaturated fats into saturated fats. So it increased the melting point. The problem is that in the process, you generate trans fatty acids, and those are really bad for human health. It increases coronary disease risk, diabetes, etc. So it's thousands of papers linking trans fatty acids to impacting human health. Then the FDA imposed a ban on the use of partially hydrogenated oils that actually started in 2015, but none of the companies could commit to replace entirely partially hydrogenated oils, because the monetary impact is huge. It was estimated to be $16 billion. And then alternatives to partially hydrogenated oils are other vegetable oils like cocoa butter, for example, that it's used in chocolate. It provides this melt in your mouth texture and the nice snap. But cocoa butter is super expensive. And then the only alternative is palm oil or palm oil fractions. So that's the main reason why we are consuming it, and the main impact in the environment.
I think that cocoa would not be as sustainable either. Like, because I've been down to the Amazon and seen where they burn the forest to grow chocolate, because that's where the cocoa would come from, right? As an alternative to palm oil.
Exactly, and you then have the same issue, right?
Deforestation.
It only grows it grows in certain regions, so you can't really rely on these very specific vegetable oils that then the only way to grow it is by deforesting. So that's where our solution comes in, which is a new protein that it's an enzyme actually. Proteins can transform substrate into products, and those are called enzymes. And we have developed this process that allows us to replace the chemical process. We can, with an enzymatic method, which is much more healthier and naturally inspired, we can transform low melting point vegetable oils into high melting point vegetable oils, releasing pressure from palm. So you can use other vegetable oils that grows in other part of the world to produce the same product. In that way, you release this pressure from cacao butter or chia butter or palm oil.
So you can do it with any vegetable?
Exactly. We have tested right now with sunflower oil, canola oil, and we're expanding as we continue developing this process in our lab to make sure that then we can integrate different type of substrates to make sure that we can have consistently the same product at the end.
Because that texture, the consistency, the consistency, I imagine, would just be so important, because I have a can of coconut oil, and it's definitely not oil. It's like a block. It's like a bar of soap.
It's like a fat, right? A vegetable fat.
Yeah, and so I try to make some granola with it, and then I have to scrape it off and kind of chunk it off, and then I have to melt it, and then it's fine once it gets on the oatmeal. But I can see that if you were trying to have a nice consistency at room temperature, that coconut oil wouldn't really work for a lot of things, I think.
Exactly, and that's exactly the process where we are right now, which is working with food companies, and they are helping us in this transition to understand what's the actual need, and it's like redefining, not thinking about what can we do with what we have out there, but it's how we can design a product that is perfect for the final application with our process. So we are adjusting, the melting point. For some applications, you need 30 degrees Celsius. For others, you need 35 degrees Celsius melting point. And that's something we can really fine tune with this enzymatic process compared to, extracting palm oil and mixing with other vegetable oils to obtain something that is close to the application that you need.
Could you use corn or soy? Because I know that those are very popular crops in North America.
Exactly. We can indeed use it.
Yeah, because I know the Midwest and even farmers here in Canada, it just seems like an easy crop. I don't know if it's easy. I don't want to insult farmers if it's not, but it just seems to be very prevalent, I guess, like the corn-soy rotation. So, yeah, if you could maybe use that. And I don't know. I think there's a lot of corn syrup put into a lot of our food that's probably not very healthy for us.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's one of the interesting substrate, and if you look at those products are really cheap too, right? Because they I don't know, sell for $600 or $450 per ton, which is really cheap compared to cacao butter that sells I don't know, last time I checked it was $8,000 per ton. So you have this massive difference, and it's mainly driven by the applications, the texture that you can generate with other oils that melt at high temperatures.
Do you know if soy lecithin, am I saying it right? Soy lecithin?
Soy lecithin, yeah, that's a kind of a phospholipids extracted from soy, but not for the same applications.
Okay, so that's not for the same thing as palm oil.
Exactly, it's used as emulsifiers.
Mm-hmm. Whereas palm oil is used for more
to
consistent.
provide texture. Like if for example, if you're making chocolate, 50% of the chocolate it's just vegetable oil. It's fat. That's what it it brings this nice melt in your mouth texture. That's the vegetable oil. That it's higher melting point.
Uh-huh. Oh, that's interesting. Well, I want to know a little bit more about you, Leonardo, because I think this is some pretty fantastic work. And I took a little bit of science in university, but I'm not a scientist. So could you explain to me a little bit like about your background and how you got into combating food waste through AI and science?
Sure. So I have a background in biotech engineering, and I studied here in Chile, in Santiago, and early on in my career, I was involved, and I really like the computational side of things. So I was at some point in my life between studying computer science or biotech, because I also like the bio components. So I ended up studying biotechnology engineering, and then during this process, I learned a lot about computational biology. So that really captured my attention. I love to combine these two sciences and understand and use computational tools to predict biology and to learn from biology, and specifically around proteins. So I come from a scientific background, and that's how I got into developing the core technology. And during this process, I met with my co-founder Francia. She's also from biotech engineering, and we started to think about developing a company, but from the scientific perspective, by bringing a new tool that will really improve predictions around biological processes and biological molecules. And then we realized, okay, this really has some interesting applications. So in 2017, we founded the company, and we moved to San Francisco because we received an investment from Indie Bio, which is a biotech accelerator in the Bay Area. And then we got in contact with the food industry, and we realized, okay, there is a lot of issues here that we can solve with proteins, and we are really good at predicting how proteins perform. So let's apply this AI technology into the food industry to create the next generation ingredients, replacing a lot of chemical compounds that are being used right now with proteins that can really outperform those ingredients, but also will not impact the environment and will not be bad for human health. That's how we come out with the idea and how we get to develop these products.
That's amazing. And did you have a lot of competition for the Indie Award that you got? So were you already in California when you got that, or are you still in Chile?
It was actually an interesting story. We had already started the company in Chile in 2016, and then we were in a kind of pitch competition in Mountain View. And then one of the judges was actually the chief scientific officer of Indie Bio, and he really loved the application around transforming vegetable oils. That was one of our first applications, and he loved the idea. And we actually lost that pitch competition, but he came to us and said, you have something really interesting here, and we want to know you better. And then at the day after that, they actually offer us to invest in the company, and we decided, okay, let's go to San Francisco, and we moved to SF.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's so cool. I just love that people are interested in funding some of these projects, because it really could make a world of difference. And I think it's so cool that human beings have this power and intelligence to clean things up and make things better. It's very cool. So how did you get interested in sustainability? Was this ever about sustainability, or was it more about the science? Like, are you into the environment?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the science perspective we took, it's always linked to sustainability, and we learn early on from different researchers how current processes and are really impacting our environment, right? And I think our generation really was born with that mission to change how we are, deforestating our planet, or how we are feeding people really bad stuff. So, and we know that, and we know it from the science perspective. We know, we have facts about it, right? So I think it always was linked.
Yeah. So what's next for Proterra?
So we recently have received some investment from a VC fund in Europe. We relocated part of the team to Paris, actually, to leverage the expertise around fermentation and the facilities that you can access in Europe. So we are expanding the team there. We are exploring indeed new applications in the food industry, replacing multiple ingredients that are really bad for human health and for the environment. We started with these preservatives, then palm oil. We're also working indeed in emulsifiers, so that's also something we have in mind. And we work with a lot of companies that are really mission driven, and they want also to replace these current additives. And a lot of what we see in the future is to enable a protein-based world, and enable these companies that are replacing animals, for example, from the food industry. I think that's also key, and proteins can do all that.
Mm-hmm. Are you a vegetarian yourself or a vegan?
Not really, but I will definitely change to a plant-based source if you can deliver the same flavors and texture, and I think that will drive a lot of change in the industry from what we call the flexitarians, right? That we will change because we understand the sustainability issues behind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I think like the carne asadas are a pretty popular thing. I remember going to those in Chile, and they were quite an amazing cultural experience with big families around and music. And we did some pits as well, like where you dig a pit and then put the meat in the pit. I guess you probably, I don't know if you know about that process.
Yeah, exactly. Curanto, definitely. So when you grow in that culture, it's really difficult to change. But we are already seeing that a lot of people is actually transitioning. But it's hard to convince, especially in Latin America. I think we grow with that culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's some pretty good food there. I remember like the empanadas. You can get all different kinds of empanadas. Even the McDonald's were serving empanadas. You could get all different.
That's actually true.
Yeah, that's nice. And the ají sauce, that was it's like a spicy ketchup. That stuff is good. I like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Not so spicy as the Mexican one, but yeah, we do have that.
Yeah, it's like milder than, but yeah, I just have like the fondest memories of Chile. I absolutely love it. And it's so cool to talk to you, being from Santiago and going to university there and doing AI and biotech and all these really interesting things that are helping the world. And now you're in Europe and you're in California, and sounds like this is going to really take off and be all over the world. So I will watch out for bread that has less ingredients in it, and maybe it will be because Proterra has helped in my area. So that'll be pretty cool. So thank you so much, Leonardo. It was really cool talking to you.
No, thanks to you for the invitation. I really enjoyed the discussion, and definitely we're looking forward to change the world. There is a lot of other companies doing a lot of progress here, so I don't think it will be just one startup. It takes a lot of effort to change the entire food system, but I think we're in a good track.
Yeah, absolutely. And one person can't do everything, right? So many, many people working on many different things. And this is so exciting. If you're listening and you're young, maybe you're in high school, you're wondering what to go to university for. I would really look into the sciences, because I think there's going to be a lot of cool companies like this that you could maybe get some really cool jobs in and really make a difference around the world in sustainability. So I think that's really cool too. Was there anything else that you wanted to add?
No, just to follow on your last comment, I definitely think the interface between biology and computational sciences. It's something super exciting. A lot of companies are looking for that expertise, and it's actually missing. So and we do have that challenge always to find the right people that will combine these two worlds.
Oh, yeah, that's really cool because we've definitely never talked about that combination before on the show. Yeah, this has been really great. So thank you. And for listeners, if they want to check you out, Proterra.com, is that the website?
It's proterabio.com.
ProterraBio.com. Cool. So you can check that out there and see what they're doing with their products, Protera Guard and Protera Sense, and what they're working on and how the AI works. That was Leonardo Alvarez. He's the CEO of Protera.
Change starts now.
This is the Zero Waste Countdown Podcast.